Hi, and welcome to episode 78 of the Noble Character Crafts podcast. My name is Amy, and I am coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Saturday, October 12th, 2019. This is a podcast all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting, quilting, and hand-dyed yarn to share with you all. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoyed this episode. You can find me online on Instagram and Etsy at Noble Character Crafts. And you can also get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. You will find links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I was recently hosting a make-along over on Instagram that recently wrapped up at the end of September. That was the Vintage Mal, which was for any vintage patterns that you wanted to make. So any pattern that was published in 1999 or earlier was eligible to be entered into this make-along. And that again wrapped up on September 30th. And I just want to thank all of you who were able to join in on that make-along. It was nice to be able to see all of the beautiful projects that you were making from vintage patterns. And I wanted to go ahead and announce the 2 winners that I drew for that make-along. I used random number generator, and I just chose from the Instagram posts that use the hashtag Vintage Mal. And the 2 winners are, the first one is Nicole, who is known as cozy_crochet on Instagram. And Nicole, congratulations. She is making the filigree shawl, which was published in 1972. And Nicole, you have won this yarn from my Etsy shop, Noble Character Crafts yarn. I always package all of the yarn from my shop in a hand-stamped project bag like this. And you have won the colorway Sings on my Josephine base, which is DK weight, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. There are 246 yards to 100 grams. And Sings comes from the proverb 29 verse 6, which says, "A righteous man sings and rejoices." So all of my colorways, as well as my business name, come from Proverbs. Some of the colorways come from Psalms as well. But all of the colorways are named from a psalm or a proverb, and then I always list that on the label that comes on the yarn. And then also with all of my yarn, I include a stitch marker or progress keeper that I make, and I like to try to coordinate them sometimes with the colors that come in this skein of yarn. So anyway, congratulations, Nicole. If you would please send me a message either on Instagram or through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com and let me know your mailing address and your full name, and I'll be so happy to get this off in the mail to you as soon as possible. And the second winner for the Vintage Mal is Michelle, who is Lindgren9478 on Instagram. And congratulations, Michelle. She is knitting a beautiful sweater that has a plaid type design on the front, and it was published in 1970. And Michelle, you have won a skein of my Thought colorway on my carrying base, which is 100% non-superwash merino wool worsted weight, and there are 218 yards to 100 grams. And the proverb that this one is named after is from Proverbs 21:29, which says, "The upright gives thought to his ways." Again, this one comes with a progress keeper stitch marker on there that has a shell. I thought the colors in that shell went really well with the colorway here. So I actually go to church with Michelle. Random number generator chose the winner, so it wasn't that I particularly chose Michelle, but I'm super happy that you won, Michelle, and I will just go ahead and bring this with me to church tomorrow, and hopefully I'll see you there. So congratulations. Thanks again to everybody who participated in that make-along. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed seeing all of the beautiful things that you all are making. I have a few finished objects to share with you all today. I'm so excited about that. The first one is this beautiful Metanoia shawl that I knitted. This is a gorgeous design by Devin Ventre of Knitty McPurly. And I knit this out of my own hand-dyed yarn. The 3 different colors that I used are Vineyard, which is the just the tonal burgundy color here. And then the border, you can see I used my Plenty colorway. and this bright coral color is called Living. I used my Pitter Patter base for this, which is fingering weight, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And it really didn't use that much yarn of any of them, which was, you know, it's nice that like I mentioned before, it would be a great project to use leftover yarn for, because the main color is the burgundy and I only used just over half of a hank of yarn for that. So the other two took even less than that. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, for the Vineyard, I used 60 grams. For the Plenty colorway, I used 55 grams. And for the Living Bright Coral colorway, I only used 20 grams. So that would be great to have, you know, if you have some hanks of yarn that are not all the way used up and you have quite a bit left over, it would be perfect for this shawl. I use the recommended needle size, which are US 5, 3.75 millimeter needles. And yeah, I just really enjoyed working on this shawl. As you can see, it fits really nicely around the neck in this style, as well as it is big enough to comfortably drape over the shoulders. And it fits really nicely over the shoulders as well. It's so beautiful. I absolutely love this horseshoe lace pattern in the main section here. I think it's so gorgeous. And I love the, I'm so happy that I chose to use these autumnal colorways for this shawl. I think it's just perfect, obviously, for this time of year, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. So here it is in its full wingspan. And let's see, does it actually, it's not a terribly large shawl, but it is my wingspan in the width. So, and I'm 5'10", so it's a good size shawl, but not too big, so it's really nice. Started at the top here, and it has some beautiful eyelet sections, a few striping sections. Again, the beautiful horseshoe lace is both in that main area here with the burgundy, as well as along the border. And yeah, I just really am so happy with how this turned out. I think it's so gorgeous, and I'm so happy to have it done before autumn is over so that I can enjoy it this season. I think it'll be so much fun to wear, and I think the colors are just really, really fun in this shawl. So super happy with this project, and I highly recommend the pattern. It was so much fun to make. Really, really happy with how it turned out. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the dress form behind me so I can talk about my next finished object. By the way, Devin has a podcast called Knitting McPurly as well, which I highly recommend you checking out if you haven't yet. Okay, my next finished object is this cardigan that I'm wearing. I'm so happy that I was able to finish my pattern that I was knitting that was part of the Vintage Mal. This pattern is called Fanfare, and it was published in 1941 by Hand Knits by Beehive. And I'm so thrilled that this is completed, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, though it wasn't the easiest project I have ever made. It did have a few hiccups along the way, but it worked out in the end, so I'm super happy with the finished object. I started this exactly 3 months from the date that I finished it. I started it on July 10th and I finished it on October 10th. So it was kind of a long process for a cardigan. You know, usually I'm able to make a cardigan a little faster than that, but it was knit in fingering weight yarn. I used my own hand-dyed yarn again for this project. I used my Gentle base, which is 100% non-superwash fine merino wool, and I used the colorway Humble. So this garment was knit from the bottom up in pieces and then seamed together. I used a US 1 2.25 millimeter needle for the ribbing, and then I went up to a US 2.75 millimeter needle for the majority of the garment. As you can see, it has this beautiful lace pattern throughout the entirety of the garment, and I absolutely love that. That's what really drew me to this pattern when I first saw it. I just really loved the lace detail throughout. I thought it was so gorgeous. So the original pattern came with 3 sizes let me check again, from 33 inches to 37 inches in bust circumference, and my bust circumference is 38 inches. So I thought that I needed to adjust the pattern a little bit to make a larger size. So I ended up increasing the number of stitches that I was using according to the pattern, just following the same pattern, you know, the same amount of increases that they had from each of their patterns in order to increase by 1 more set of stitches in order to make a larger size for myself. I did that for the back piece. And then when I started making the front pieces, I realized that it was turning out a little bit too large, and that I was afraid it was going to turn out too large. So I ended up, for the 2 front pieces, I just followed the pattern for the largest size. And I also changed in the ribbing, the button bands, because in the original pattern it has you knitting the button bands along as you're knitting the rest of the garment, but it does not allow you to put any buttonholes in the ribbing at the bottom of the garment, which I didn't want that. It would have gaped open right there at the bottom of the ribbing if there weren't any buttonholes. So I didn't want to do that. And so anyway, I changed that in that I did not add a button band when I was knitting the front 2 pieces, and I went back in afterwards and added those in. So I got the back and the 2 front pieces done. I blocked them and seamed them all together. And if you watched my last episode, I showed you that I had already gone in and put in the button bands and the neck band, and the body had turned out too large for me, for my preferences. It was okay, but it was just a little bit too loose. There was quite a bit of positive ease, and I wasn't happy with the fit of it. So I ended up just using my sewing machine and pinning. I just pinned the side seams at 1.5 inches. I measured 1.5 inches on both sides and pinned it, and used my sewing machine and just sewed line down, and I ended up just cutting off these 2 extra strips after I sewed them in. So these I measured, they ended up to be about 4 inches total that I ended up taking off, but I'm super happy with the fit now. I think it's so much more flattering at this size, and so I'm super happy with that adjustment that I was able to make. But in the end, then I probably wouldn't have had to increase my stitch count for the back piece, obviously. And I wonder if maybe it even would have turned out a little bit too big if I had followed the large size throughout the whole garment instead of increasing. I don't know for sure, but anyway, I'm really happy with how that turned out. So maybe I'll show you the inside of it so you can kind of see how that worked out. I wasn't too worried about that because I have sewn a garment and cut it before. When I steeked a garment, before I used superwash yarn to knit a cardigan that was steeked, and so I just used my sewing machine to side those seams before I steeked it open. But here you can see the inside seam. I could probably trim a little bit more of this extra fabric off to make it a little less bulky in here, but it doesn't bother me. So anyway, you can kind of see the seam inside there. And yeah, I'm really happy with how that worked out. So last time I recorded, I was working on the 2 sleeves. I knit them at the same time, 2 at a time on the same needles, which worked out pretty well. I enjoy making socks in that way, and so I wanted to try to make sleeves in that way as well, so that I wouldn't have to I thought that I might need to make some adjustments to the sleeves as I was knitting, because of the amount of adjustments I had to make to the body. And I'm glad that I did that, because I did make quite a few adjustments to the sleeves as well. So they again were knit in pieces and then seamed, and were knit from the bottom up. So I started working on them, and I thought that they were turning out a little bit too large as well. So I decided that I was just going to make them 3/4 length because I thought, well, if they're too big, then I'll just put them at 3/4 length sleeves, and then it won't matter that they're too big because it will, you know, the larger part of my arm will be up here and they'll fit better. So I did a lot of math. I did a lot of, you know, trying to figure out how much length I would need in order to, you know, you have to, it's really hard to figure out sleeves knit from the bottom up, I think. Because you have to do some shoulder shaping, which adds a lot of length, but you have to figure out where should you stop knitting the regular length of the sleeve before you start the shoulder shaping, and how much length is that going to add to your sleeve? Does that make sense? So it's really hard to figure out. So anyway, I did the calculations to try to figure out how much length would the shoulder shaping add to the sleeve, and then, you know, added that to what I already had to try to determine how I should, or when I should start the shoulder shaping. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, I ended up eliminating quite a few, or a couple of sections where it said just knit straight until you get to a certain length. At one point it says knit until you get to like 18 inches or something before you start the shoulder shaping. I eliminated that. As soon as I got to the number of increases that I needed for the sleeves, I stopped. Oh, I know, I did one more repeat of the lace pattern, and then I started the shoulder shaping. I did not take a measurement of the sleeve at that point, but I know it was less than 18 inches. It was probably around 12 inches, I would guess. Then in the shoulder shaping, I also eliminated a section that said knit straight for 3 extra inches. I just took that out completely, and I just did all of the decreases as the pattern called for, and just skipped over that part where I was supposed to knit straight for 3 inches. And again, I thought that they were going to turn out 3/4 length. But once I got them blocked and seamed onto the garment, they actually turned out full length. And they're just the tiniest bit short of where I would prefer them to be. But I am super happy, really. I'm really happy with how they turned out. They're a nice length, and they're not really too big. I mean, there is some extra fabric here, but I don't think it's unflattering at all. So that was a surprise. I was totally not expecting that, but it worked out. So I'm happy with that. I'll go ahead and stand up so that you guys can see what it looks like a little bit more. So here it is. As you can see, the sleeves are a nice length. I really think they're nice, and they might, they're nice. I'm really happy with them. I really am happy with the little puffy shoulder parts here. I do think that they hang a little bit over my shoulder more than they should. The puffy part should probably be up on my shoulder a little bit better, but it's okay. I'm happy with it. I just really love how it turned out. I'm so pleased with it. Here's the back of it. I love it. I'm so happy with it. I think it's so elegant and pretty and feminine, and I really am happy with it. I was quite nervous that it was not going to turn out several times during the process of making it, but I'm so pleased that it did work out. I'm really happy with the buttons that I found. I just found them at Walmart. They were not expensive at all. They're just got this little bit of sparkle to them, and they're nice and tiny, so they're not too, they don't distract from the beautiful lace pattern too much, but I think they work well with it. So yeah, I just am so pleased with this. This is the first time I've knit a garment out of my gentle base, and I loved working with it, and I think it's going to be so nice to wear. Yeah, I'm just so pleased with it. So is that all? I feel like I'm missing something because this was such a long process in making this, and I did feel like I made tons of adjustments. Let's see, I just want to look over my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything. Oh, for the neckband and button band, I just picked up and did a 1x1 ribbing. I did 8 rows of ribbing for the neckband, and I did just 4 rows of ribbing for the button bands. So that was an adjustment from the original pattern. The original pattern has a curly Q collar detail, which I eliminated. You can see that here. But I like this color, or this neckband, a lot better. I think that's all that I have to say for this knit, but I'm so pleased that I was able to get this done. And yeah, making a vintage pattern was quite challenging. I don't know that I'm going to want to make another one really soon, or I don't know. We'll see if I ever make another vintage pattern. It was quite a learning curve, I guess. But I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. So happy with it. Oh, the gauge was knit at 28 stitches to 4 inches. I think that's it. My next finished object was a super fast knit that I made for a family member. It's my husband's aunt who was crocheting a cardigan for her granddaughter and was having a bit of trouble with it. And we went over to their house back in the spring, I'm pretty sure. It was quite a while ago. I know it was probably April or May when we went over to their house. And I saw this project that she was working on, and she was kind of at a standstill in that project. And I said, well, I can do it for you. And she said, would you please? So she sent me home with the yarn, and I said, I'm not really sure if this is enough yarn, because she was following a different pattern, and according to that pattern, she would need more yarn than what she had. And so anyway, she got me some more of the yarn, and after I got to looking at the pattern that she was making, I realized that it only came in like baby sizes, and her granddaughter is going to be 4 soon. And so anyway, that was going to turn out a little bit too small for her. So I decided to make a different garment than what she was making, but similar to the same shape. I found a free pattern that was published by Lion Brand. It's called Lion Brand Baby's First Neck Down Cardie. And it used the same weight of yarn, which is a bulky weight yarn. It's really going to be super bright on here because it's a bright white yarn, but here is the finished garment. And yeah, it was really, really fast. It only took me 2 days to make this cardigan. Well, I mean, it's hardly got any sleeves to it. It just got a few extra rows on the sleeve cap. So yeah, it was super easy and fast to make this. Again, it uses bulky weight yarn. The yarn that she had purchased is Bernat Pip Squeak, and it is a bulky weight yarn, 100% polyester, and the colorway is called Whitey White. So there is the skein of it, and it was knit from the top down as the pattern suggests. You can hardly tell, but the yoke of the cardigan is knit in garter stitch, and then the remainder of the body is knit in stockinette, though there is a little garter ridge on the button band, which is knit as you go. And then there's also a little garter ridge along the bottom of the hem. The gauge for this was really, really tricky. The original gauge calls for 16 stitches to 4 inches, and when I swatched, I used the recommended needle size, which was a US 9 5.5 millimeter needle, and I got a gauge of 10 stitches to 4 inches. So my gauge was a lot looser than what the original pattern called for, but this Pipsqueak yarn is really fluffy and a little bit hard to work with. Well, actually very hard to work with, honestly. I mean, it was just so much different from what I'm used to. It's really slick on the needles, and yet it doesn't go smoothly through the needles because of the texture of the yarn. So it really you kind of really have to pull on it. It did hurt my hands to work on this project a little bit. But anyway, since I had such a loose gauge, I decided to go with the smallest size that is provided on the pattern, and that is a 0 to 6 month size. No, 6 to 12 months. The pattern goes up to a 10-year sized garment, which allows you to get up to a 31-inch chest measurement. The smallest is a 20-inch chest measurement. Like I said, the girl that this is going to is 4, or going to be 4 soon. And anyway, so I just decided to make the smallest size and hope for the best. And I think it turned out a little bit too big for a 4-year-old. I tried it on my daughter, who is actually 8, and it fits her, But then I also tried it on my 6-year-old boy, who's actually pretty small for his age. He's like in the 5th percentile on the growth charts. So he's pretty small, and it fit him nicely. It's not too big on him. Anyway, I think it probably is going to be a little bit too roomy on the 4-year-old girl, but at least she'll grow into it. I really wasn't comfortable knitting this on a smaller needle size because it is so difficult to work with this yarn. I thought making it a tighter gauge would just be so difficult. So that's why I decided to stay with the recommended needle size, even though the gauge was so off. And I think it's better to have this turn out a little bit too big than obviously too small. So anyway, hopefully she'll be able to use this for many years to come. And it'll be a really nice cardigan to throw over a dress. The material is 100% polyester, and so it's easy to wash. Actually, when I got done knitting it, I had frogged the work that Chris's aunt had made. And so the yarn I was using had already been used. And when I got done knitting, there was like this brownish line that kind of ran through the middle of the cardigan where the yarn must have gotten dirty from something. And I was able to wash it, and it came out really nicely. So sorry it's so bright on the screen, but anyway, this will be so easy for her to wash, and she could even, I think, wash and dry it without any problems, which is good for a child's bright white garment. So anyway, I'm excited that this was done. I had been putting it off for so long. She gave me the yarn. I know she gave me the yarn back in June, and so she wanted to have it as a Christmas gift for her granddaughter. So I'm really happy that I was able to get this done. And like I said, it was such a fast knit. There was no reason for me to put it off for so long because it just worked up so quickly. I had these buttons in my stash. They're just a white plastic, and I thought they went well. I needed to have a large button because the buttonholes were pretty large. So anyway, there it is. Super easy. I don't plan on knitting with that kind of yarn again. It wasn't enjoyable to work with really, but I'm glad I got it done. And it is so, so soft. I don't know if you've ever felt this kind of yarn before, but it's just so squishy and cuddly. So hopefully she will love it. Okay, so those are all of my finished objects, and now I'll move on to my works in progress. They're all new cast-ons from the last time that I recorded, so that's exciting. The first project is in this cute bag that I received in a swap that I did with a lady named Susie. She has an Etsy shop called Tiny Toffee Designs, and I just really love this bag. So these socks have a bit of a problematic story to them, I guess. I started knitting a pattern by Natalie, who is known as Knitty Natty, and she also has a wonderful podcast that I love watching. And she designed this cool pattern called Baubles and Bezoars. Here's a picture of her design, and it's a really clever design in that it's meant for self-striping yarn. And you basically just do the pattern until your colors change, and then you change the pattern that you're doing in order to give a little bit of texture to the sock. So that's the intent of this pattern, which I thought was super clever, and I was excited to try this pattern, but I messed it up. So anyway, I pretty much abandoned the pattern. There's only a small section of it that I followed her pattern without messing it up. So anyway, I'll talk you through that. I don't know that I can really call these socks that pattern because I'll explain. Okay, these are being knit from the cuff down, and I am making the medium size. Yes, the medium size, which calls for you to cast on 66 stitches. I'm using US 1 2.25 millimeter needles, and all of the needles that I use are Chowgu red lace needles. So anyway, it started off with, the original pattern calls for you to do a 1x1 ribbing, but since it was an odd number of stitches, I didn't want to have to start my row with a purl. I don't know why I really cared, but I thought that I would have a bad laddering problem if I started the row with a purl on the one side because the count would be off. So anyway, I just decided to do a 2x1 rib for the cuff instead. And I saw that later on in the pattern that there was a 2x1 rib kind of in the pattern, so I thought that would work out well. So anyway, I did that for the first 3 color stripes. And then the yellow stripe and the orange stripe are the only thing in this sock that are following Natalie's pattern. And that's the only thing I did right. So I adjusted the cuff at the top, and then these 2 colors are done in the correct pattern. So I really like, it's a ribbed pattern as well, but it has a bit of texture in there, which I love. Now this pink stripe was supposed to be the baubles section of the pattern, and I messed it up. I did not read the pattern correctly. No fault of Natalie's, completely my fault. I did not look at the pattern correctly, and I did not do it correctly. So anyway, you can kind of see that the pink section, the ribbing is a little bit off. It's all my fault. So anyway, I just messed that up. And then after I got back to the purple, I decided that I'd messed it up too badly, and I just decided to change my mind about how I was making these socks. So anyway, I got to thinking that I wanted to use this colored striped yarn for a different project as well. So that made me think that I just wanted to change everything up, and I decided to switch my colors and just have this striped section for the top cuff part. And then I switched my yarn. So anyway, the yarn that I started with is Knit Picks Felici in the Punch Bug colorway. And the reason why I wanted to save that was because I really feel like these colors match a sunset, like the colors that you see in a sunset. And I want to use this in a colorwork project where I am using this as the background and then working some like trees or something in the front of it. There's a couple of patterns that I have my eye on that have that type of a look to it, where you have like I would use black for the tree shaping and then have this as the background so that it looks like an evening sky where the trees, you know, when you're looking at the sunset, the trees look so dark against the backdrop of the sunset. So anyway, that's why I wanted to save this yarn. I didn't want to use it all up in these socks. And anyway, I switched then to Knit Picks Stroll Tweed in the Down Heather colorway. And I just switched to a 2x1 ribbing for the body of the sock. So I've abandoned the pattern, and I will hopefully be able to knit that pattern correctly at some point. But for now, I am just doing a 2x1 sock. So anyway, I really, really like how they're turning out though. I think they're going to be super cute with that colorful cuff, and yeah, I'm excited about them. And they're super easy now. You know, I don't have to worry about a pattern at all. So I'm happy about that. My next work in progress is in this super cute project bag that I received from a giveaway from Jules of So Sweet Violet. This is made by Caroline Watts Embroidery, and it's so tiny and cute. I just love it so much. And in here is a hat I am making for one of the pastors at my church. He asked me to make him a hat maybe a month ago, and I was so happy that he asked me that. I mean, I really love gift knitting, and if there's somebody that wants something that's hand knit, I'm just so pleased about that. Maybe some other knitters are not pleased when people ask them to make them things, but I love making things. I love gift giving knits, and especially if I know somebody's going to want a specific thing, that's even better because then I'm not worried that they're not going to like it. So anyway, he asked me to knit him a hat, and he said that he would pay me for it and everything. But October is actually Pastor Appreciation Month, and so I thought this is the perfect opportunity for me to be able just to gift him the hat, which is what I really wanted to do anyway. I don't want him to pay me for a hat. I just want to make it for him. So anyway, I sent him an email and put in a couple of attachments of pictures of some hat patterns that I hoped that he would like, and asked him what color he would like, and said I wanted just to gift him the hat for Pastor Appreciation Month, and he was very grateful to accept that gift. So I'm happy. that he was willing to accept that. And anyway, I picked out a few different patterns, like I said, that I thought he would like. And one of them was just a simple ribbed hat, and then another one had a kind of a, almost like a lightning bolt, cool cable thing down the side of it. But my favorite one is the one that he picked, so that was super great. And it is this one here. It is called Bugs, and it is by Natalie Pelykh. Not sure about that pronunciation, probably not correct, but that's the best I can do. And anyway, I love it. I just think that's so cool. And I'm happy that all of the patterns that I sent him had kind of a ribbed texture, because I was hoping that that would be easiest to make sure he gets a good fitting hat. But I love the cable work there along the edge. So pretty. So I am just starting the cable pattern. Like, I've only done one repeat of the pattern, and I'm just, I'm not even around the hat. I'm just on my very first row of the cabling. So I've got the ribbing done, which is a 2x2 ribbing. And I am using my own hand-dyed yarn again for this project. This is on my Caring base, which is 100% non-superwash merino wool, worsted weight, and this is the colorway Strength. He said that he liked, colors that are nature inspired. So I thought this one would be a good neutral and very woodsy. I am using the recommended needle size, which are US 4 3.5 millimeter needles. And there are 3 sizes in this pattern. There's a child, toddler, and adult size hat. That seems like it's a little bit off, but the child is the smallest, and then the toddler is the medium size, and the adult is the largest. But anyway, there's 3 sizes. I'm making the adult size. It's supposed to turn out to have a 20, ooh, that's pretty big, a 24 to 25 inch circumference. I think my head is a 22 inch circumference. I don't know if the guy I'm making this for has a large head or not. He's not a very large guy. I don't know. Hopefully it'll work out. We'll see. Well, I think that the needles are pretty small for worsted weight, US 4s. So I thought that I was going to go up to a larger needle, but I decided just to go ahead and follow the hat pattern, because there are a lot of stitches that you cast on for this size. So anyway, hats are always, I have a hard time making hats to be the right size a lot of times. And I like making them on these 16-inch circulars, because then, you can just knit around and around. But then it is a little bit harder to try it on until you got quite a bit of length knit. I could put it on some waste yarn and just try it on, but we'll see. Anyway, it's working out really well so far. Not much to show except this ribbing, but anyway, I'm glad that's on the needles, and I don't think it'll take me too terribly long to knit this up, so I'm sure I'll be able to have it done by the end of the month, which is my goal, so that it will be able to be gifted in the month of October. My next work in progress is in a me-made project bag that I just found this material at the store, and I loved it, and I wanted to make a project bag. Actually, I made it in order to go with my Metanoia shawl, because it was so fall themed. I wanted to have a fall themed bag to go with it, but I have started a new cardigan that is being housed in this project bag, and I'm super excited about that. It is the Sophie cardigan, which is by Jennifer Wood, and here is a picture of it. I just absolutely love all this cabling down the back and along the sleeves as well, and along the front. It's got cabling all over it, so it's absolutely beautiful. The construction for this is new to me. It has saddle shoulders. Is that what they're called? Yeah, saddle shoulders and inset sleeves. So I've never done that construction before, and I just started this last night, so I don't have a lot to show. But again, I'm using my own hand-dyed yarn for this project. This is on my Josephine base, which is DK weight, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and this is on my fine gold colorway, which I'm super excited to finally be making a cardigan out of this colorway. I have wanted to for quite a while, so I'm super excited about that. But you start with, this looks like a little swatch almost, but you actually start with the saddle shoulder pieces before you knit the rest of the garment. It is knit from the top down, but you start with 2 of these. So this is just the first of the 2. I'm almost to I need to knit it to a certain length, and then I'll just put these stitches on hold until I'll make another one for the other shoulder, and then I think I'll join these to the cast on for the neck band, I think, or something like that. Anyway, I am absolutely loving how this cable pattern is working up. It's so cute. There's lots of twisted stitches in there, and the cabling is just 1 by 1. It's just 1 over 1 cabling so far, so that's super easy. I have just started cabling without a cable needle, which I have tried in the past and didn't like, but with just a 1 by 1 cable, it was super fiddly to use a cable needle for that, I found. So I thought, I'm just going to try not using a cable needle one more time and see if I like it, and I think I do like it. So I did that for a few rows this morning, and I think I'll keep up with not using a cable needle for this pattern. So that's exciting. It does go a lot faster, so that's good. The nice thing about using my Josephine base is that I've made several garments using my Josephine base, and so I don't need to swatch. I don't feel that I need to swatch because I know what gauge I get with this yarn on several different needle sizes. So the gauge for this pattern calls for 20 stitches to 4 inches, and I am using US 7 4.5 millimeter needles for this because I know that's what I get that gauge on with this yarn. So I am, really excited about this cardigan. I think it will be gorgeous when it's done, and I'm so happy to have this colorway working up into a cardigan. So not very far along on that project, but I'm very excited about it. I also am going to have a few more of these project bags in my shop. I had a few people ask if I had, after I made this one, I had a little bit extra fabric left over, and so I made up a few extra ones and sold them in my Etsy shop, but they got sold out really quickly. And a few other people asked if I was going to be making up any more of those project bags, and so I did go ahead and do that. And those are going to be in my shop. I think I will update my shop as soon as this video uploads. So depending on when I can get this video uploaded, I will update my shop, but I will be announcing it on Instagram and letting the few people that asked me to make more project bags know, so they will hopefully be able to grab one. Anyway, I did use a different contrast fabric for these. I made 6 of them, and they're all just alike. So they have this nice neutral canvas for the bottom and all of the, extra little pieces here. So they're a nice size bag. They can easily fit a 2 skein project. Even, I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to keep my sweater project in this size for the entirety of the sweater. They're pretty good sized. So anyway, they're all lined with the same fabric, which is just a nice neutral. It's got kind of a light leafy pattern on it. They all have a pocket inside. They're all drawstring and have a nice sized handle on the side here. And they all have a boxed bottom. So, and the fabric says pumpkin spice and everything nice. And then the other, some of them you can read the other side message really easily depending on how the fabric falls, but sometimes it's split up. So it says leaves are falling and autumn is calling. So most of them have the message. I just grabbed one of them. The other ones are out of my reach, but most of them, that message is in its entirety, but some of them they're split up. But anyway, it's just how the fabric had to be cut. But all of them say pumpkin spice and everything nice on one side, clearly. So anyway, I also sew one of my leather labels on there. And so then they're nice when you fold them. You can also fold them down, which is how I use mine quite often. So they're more of like a bucket. So anyway, those are going to be in my shop. Not very many, like I said, I only made 6, but they just take me so long to make. I'm pretty slow at making these project bags. I cut I cut out the fabric one day, and then it took me several hours. Like, I started working on them as soon as lunch was over, and then I didn't get done until almost bedtime. So it takes me quite a while to make these. So anyway, that's why I only have 6 of them, and I probably am not going to be making a ton of project bags in the future. It's just whenever I have the desire to make some, I'll put some in my shop, but I don't plan on making project bags on a regular basis just because it is so time consuming. I suppose if I would make them more often, I would get faster, right? But anyway, I don't think I'll probably be making a ton of them, but once in a while I might. Okay, my other work in progress is my quilting project. So I have made a little bit of progress on that. Last time I showed you the first 12 squares that I have made. I am making the Joseph's pinwheel quilt pattern, and I am adjusting the original pattern has only 9 squares, which comes out to be like I think it's like a 40-inch maybe square quilt. So it's kind of like a baby-sized quilt, a little bit bigger than a crib-sized quilt, but anyway, it's pretty small. And I'm adjusting it to fit our king-sized bed. So I am making 36 squares total instead of only 9. So last time I showed you the first 12 that I had made, and I have another 12 that I have already finished of the quilt block. So I'll just go ahead and show you all of those. I'm doing them all in a fall theme, so they all have kind of this fall color scheme to them. And these, all 12 of these are using the dark gray border, but I also have a light gray, which I'll show you in a second. The next 12 that I'm working on have the lighter gray color, so I'll be alternating them. Every other square will have a different colored border. I have 12 different patterned or printed fabrics and 12 different solid fabrics. So I'm just rearranging the colors that I'm putting together to get kind of a mixture of the different colors together. So there'll be a variety of different combinations. This pattern is pretty tricky for me. I'm a new quilter. I have only made 1 quilt so far. So this is the second quilt that, well, I have a third quilt that I just barely have started, but I'm planning on getting this one done before I go back to working on that other quilt that I'm making. But anyway, this is kind of a tricky pattern for me, but it's working up well. I feel like I'm getting a little bit better at getting the center point to line up nicely. I think, anyway. So I'm super excited about this. And I'm really hoping to get it done so that I can enjoy it, because it is a fall theme. I'm hoping to get it done. I'm really hoping to get it done before Halloween so that I have at least the month of November to enjoy it before I want to decorate for Christmas. Of course, I'd really like to have a Christmas themed quilt, but of course that's going to take me a long time to make as well. So anyway, we'll see. I am working on the last 12 squares that I need to make my quilt. They're still in pieces here, but you can see the lighter gray border that will be on the other squares. So I guess this is kind of fun to see this stage of the quilt. So the way that you make this quilt is you have all these different these 4 different shapes, as you can see here, and then they go together like this, and then when you put them together, you put them together like this to start making the pinwheel, so you can kind of see how that comes together. So that's kind of fun. At this point, I need to trim these down to be squares. As you can see, they're a little bit rectangular in shape right now, and so I need to trim them down so that they are 6-inch squares, I believe. So that's the next step before I will piece those squares together to make the full squares. And then I can start piecing everything together, which I'm so excited about. So those are all of the works in progress that I have to share with you this time. I do have a few new things that I purchased that I thought I would share real quickly. Knitpicks was having a sale. I think they might still be having a sale on all of their books. They were 40% off, and so I picked up a couple of those. I got Stephen West's I think this was his first, yeah, this is #1 Shawls, West Knits, Best Knits. So this was published quite a few years ago, back in 2016 it looks like. But there's so many shawls in here that I love. The one on the cover here is the Exploration Station, which so many people have done, and that's the one that I purchased this book specifically because I wanted to make this shawl. This also has the doodler in it, which I have made already, but other than that, there are so many that I would love to make. Well, really, I'd like to make the doodler again. That was such a fun one. But there's the Vertices Unite is in here, which is also a very popular pattern, and I think is so gorgeous. Some of the different versions that have been made of that are super gorgeous. Here's the doodler. Like I said, I did already make that one last year. I wanted to show you, oh, this one I think would be super fun to make using scrap yarn. This is called the Brio Chevron wrap, and it would be super fun to make with lots of different scraps, I think. And I'm missing brioche. I haven't done a brioche project in a little while, and I'm missing that. Holy Chevrons is super pretty. With Stephen West patterns, you always have to kind of look beyond the color choices. I have to look beyond the color choices that he made because I don't usually, although that, the Metanoia shawl is pretty bright, but I don't know, I don't usually go for super bright colors. I really like this knit and slide pattern, but I love the scalloped border on that one. So gorgeous. So anyway, I'm super excited that I was able to pick this up. And then the other book that I got from Knit Picks is a publication that they put out themselves. It's called Socktacular, and it gives you several different designs for cuffs, legs, heels, and toes, and then you can kind of just mix and match the different patterns that you would like to try out in order to make tons of different socks. This one was super inexpensive, and I just really liked all the different textures that they give you in the leg. I mean, I already know that I really like a simple, you know, ribbed cuff, and I like a heel flap and gusset. I like a rounded toe. So I don't know that I'll try a lot of their variations on the cuffs, heels, and toes, but I really liked all of the different textured patterns that they offer in this booklet. So I thought it would be fun to try out some of those patterns. And like I said, it was super inexpensive. It's originally only $9.99, but then it was 40% off, I believe. So then a couple of other things that I picked up are some quilting magazines. So I got the Better Homes and Gardens Quilt Sampler, and this is the probably fall 2019. Oh, it's fall and winter, fall/winter 2019 publication. And I also got the American Patchwork and Quilting, which is also by Better Homes and Gardens. And again, this is the October 2019 publication. And both of these have just so many beautiful quilting patterns in here. So in this one, this is the American Patchwork and Quilting one. And here you can see the 9 different projects that they provide patterns for, and super detailed patterns. So I think since I am a new quilter, I'm going to be able to gain a lot of good tips from these magazines. So that's why I decided to go ahead and pick up a couple of them, just so that I can learn a little bit more of how I should be quilting the best way possible. I really, really love this modern looking quilt here. This one's super fun. This one's super fun. Really all of them are. That one's gorgeous too. So anyway, and it's fun. They got a quilted purse pattern in here as well. And then this one, I don't think that they have a page that shows all of the different, oh yeah, they do. Okay, good. And here you can see some of these projects that they have patterns for. So I just thought that was a super great deal. Let's see, this one was $8 and this one was $7. So that's just so cheap to be able to get all of those patterns with, you know, detailed instructions. They even have in the back, they have the cutout of the templates that you need. So yeah, I was just super excited to pick those up, and I'm just so loving quilting lately that I'm excited to have a few extra patterns that I can dream about making in the future. The last thing I have to share with you today is yarn from my Etsy shop. Every time I record an episode, I like to share a set of 3 hanks of yarn that I think would work well together for a project. And I have this set today, which I am so excited about. Lately, when I've recorded a podcast, I've been able to show off a new colorway, which is rare for me to have a new colorway so often, really. But again, today I have a new colorway in this set. So the newest colorway is the middle one, and it is called Honest. And I was inspired by a picture that I saw that kind of had these colors in it, and I just was really inspired. I really wanted to get this colorway dyed up, which, you know, it just doesn't happen very often that I get an itch to make a certain particular colorway. So anyway, I was excited about this. So it just has this beautiful base of a tan light brown color, and then some lighter sections of that and darker sections. And then it's speckled with a deep plum color, brown, orange, tiny little bits of blue as well. So I really love how this turned out, and I think it would be good for really all year, but it's kind of got that autumnal feel to it as well, I think. And these 2 colorways just look so nice with it. I thought they really bring out the speckles in it. So this one is one of my favorites. Well, both of these solids are some of my favorites, but this one is Honor. It is just a tonal deep plum color, so it's really got kind of a reddish tone to it, almost going towards burgundy, but a deep purple, really. And this is Enriched, and it has just this really nice brownish orange color to it that is perfect for autumn as well. And I've actually made garments in both of these colors already. So they are definitely my favorites. So I thought these 3 looked really great together. And all of my yarn is available in my shop at all times on all 9 of my bases in any quantity that you might need. So please go ahead and check out my Etsy shop if you'd be interested. I would appreciate that so much. We've had a great couple of weeks. We've had a little bit of sickness. The weather has definitely cooled down, which I'm grateful for. I think we were supposed to get down to a frost last night. I'm not 100% sure if it did or not. But anyway, I did bring in some of my plants from outside and repotted them because I'm hoping to save them. I have one right over here. Let me grab it. I had a flower pot out on my front porch that I actually showed off. I'm pretty sure I showed that off on an episode probably at the beginning of maybe in spring or summer. I'm not sure which episode that was. But anyway, I had this flower pot that I had planted with so many beautiful plants, and they were doing so well. A couple of ferns and an ivy that were just doing so well, and so I wanted to save them. So here is one of them. I didn't have enough flower pots, so I just rummaged through my kitchen to try to find some containers that I could put these in just to save them so that they wouldn't get frost bitten or whatever, frozen. I had thought about bringing in the whole flower pot, but it's just been out on our porch, and I'm afraid, well, I know that underneath there's probably spiders' eggs and things like that. So I thought it would be best just to bring in a few of the plants that I wanted to save from that flower pot. So anyway, I'm super excited to have saved this, and hopefully I will be able to keep them alive. I really love houseplants. I'm usually okay at keeping them alive. I've had some failures along the way, but usually I'm okay at keeping them alive. The key, I think, is just to not water them too much. I think that's where I come into problems is when I water them. I've watered some houseplants too much, and then I just drown them and the roots rot or something like that. So anyway, the best thing I think is just to leave them alone as long as you can. Anyway, I think that's all that I have to share with you this time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoyed this episode. If you did, please feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. I would appreciate that so much. I hope you all have a great couple of weeks ahead. Bye-bye.